All right, so in a past life, you may not know this, but I was a aspiring science fiction and fantasy author. I wrote a dozen of these books, and then I wrote my first nonfiction book, which was all around investing. But there was a time in my life that I wanted to be a professional author, a wordsmith, or what I would refer to as a word wrangler. I love the idea of wrangling words and putting them together into interesting ways that can influence and impact people's lives. And along the way, I just fell in love with storytelling, with writing, with reading. And I want to share with you today 5 of the most impactful authors that I've read over the last, well, I've been reading my entire life, to be honest. This wasn't just like a late in life thing. And I attribute this to the Pizza Hut Book It program. I don't know if you were a kid, I don't know if it's still around, but when I was a kid in the 90s, if you read a certain number of books, you would get this personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut. And that like instilled in me this love of both reading and pizza. So I read and I eat a lot of pizza still to this day. But that's why I like reading. I think it's, kind of a Pavlovian response at this point. But these are 5 authors that I love. I think you should read, and I'm going to share with you a couple of lessons that I've gotten from each one of them. So the very first one is Stephen King. Now, what's interesting about Stephen King is I actually don't really care for his science or his fiction writing all that much. I'm not really a horror person. It's good. Don't get me wrong. He's a fantastic author. It's not really my jam. Maybe the only book in his series that he's ever written that I really liked was Gunslinger. I'm just a nerd. So I don't know, the idea of a man in black being chased across the desert by a guy with a magical 6-shooter. That's cool. The reason Stephen King is on this list is because when I was 14, maybe 16, I can't remember exactly. For my birthday, my dad gave me the book On Writing by Stephen King. And it was a really strange gift because I wasn't into Stephen King and I wasn't really into writing, but my dad had been trying to cultivate a writing habit in me for years up to that point. He'd been paying me to write short stories. And he gave me this book on writing, and I found it actually really interesting to read about Stephen King's process of how he has, how he creates his books. And there's something really magical about pulling back the wrapping around this gift. We can look at the final product of a book and think, oh, that person's a genius. How did this thing ever come to be? It's hard to fathom it. But then when you see the work that goes into it and you get a better understanding of how many drafts and what those drafts look like, and just understanding the process, it kind of demystifies it. And you go, oh, of course you would have this beautiful polished thing at the end. I see all the work that went into it. And that was really illuminating for me. And it gave me the belief, if nothing else, that I could be a great writer too if I just put in enough work. And I think that's true for pretty much everybody. I think everybody could be a great at whatever the thing is that they want to be great at if they just put in enough work. And that was the first thing from Stephen King. The second author is Brandon Sanderson. Brandon Sanderson is top of mind right now because he just came out with another book, and this guy's incredibly prolific. The amount that this man writes, it's absolutely absurd. He's, I think, the best storyteller in the world at the moment. I think he is hands down the best. He's amazing. But the thing that I've learned about him isn't about storytelling. It isn't even about intricate world building, which I think is what most people would associate with a guy like Brandon Sanderson, who's this big fantasy writer, right? No, the thing with him that stands out is his ability to write invisible prose. And what I mean by that is when you read his words, the words themselves don't jump out at you. The sentences don't jump out at you and grab your attention and draw attention to them. They don't make you go, that was a beautiful sentence, or man, that was such an eloquent way of putting that, right? A lot of times when we try to communicate our ideas, we want it to, we worry more about how people will receive it and how they'll perceive us as an extension. And so we want to sound smart. So we use big words, we use jargon, or we try to craft a overly complicated sentence in a way that people will go, that guy seems to really know what he's doing, right? And instead, what Brandon taught me was that the most powerful words are the ones that you don't even see. They're invisible. And you're just so wrapped into the idea that the words convey, that the words that were used to convey them become irrelevant. And so you become lost in this 1,000-page story that Brandon will write. And you'll get to the end and there won't necessarily be any single sentence that you can point to, but you just are deeply moved and impacted every chapter, every point along the way. And you just kind of go, wow. And you're just so immersed. So that's what invisible prose really does. It immerses the audience in the idea rather than distracting them with the words. And that's actually a quite difficult skill to master. So Brandon, kudos. All right, third author is Kurt Vonnegut. Kurt Vonnegut is one of my all-time favorite authors simply because when I read him, I feel like I'm just sitting in the room with my grandpa and he's telling me a story. He's just kind of rambling like an old man, and he just communicates human to human in a way that is, you would think, quite easy, just to be like, oh, you just talk like a human, just be yourself, just talk, right? But no, it's actually quite difficult to talk like a human in your writing, in your words. And he does this in a beautiful way that's both comedic and at times heartbreaking. And, if Brandon Sanderson, I've read, I've probably read thousands of his, not hundreds of thousands. I've read many of his pages. I could not quote a single line from them. But Kurt Vonnegut, he has one line that I quote pretty much to myself every day. It is, and so it goes. And so it goes. That line has stuck with me as just a response to life's chaotic machinations where, stuff happens and so it goes. And there's something just really beautiful about that idea. So Kurt Vonnegut, 2 thumbs up. Wow, that was 1 thumbs. Let's do 2 thumbs. There we go. Fourth author is Nassim Taleb, or Nicholas Nassim Taleb, or Nassim Nicholas Taleb. I always get his names mixed up. Taleb. He wrote books like The Black Swan, or oh God, why am I blanking now? The Black Swan, Fooled by Randomness, Anti-Fragile. He's written so many good books. He's probably one of my favorite modern authors in kind of like that fiction space. And what he taught me was a different way of thinking about risk, which is very interesting. When I read Taleb, he changes my worldview. He will put forth an idea that challenges or exposes to me an area of my life that I've never even thought to consider. And the one that has had the most profound impact was his ideas around asymmetric risks, where you have limited downside but unlimited upsides, or the reverse, where you have capped upside but unlimited downsides. And just being able to more accurately discern risk in our day-to-day lives has been a very incredibly powerful lesson. I recommend Taleb for everybody, but he is not everybody's cup of tea because he's kind of abrasive. So, fifth author, and I talk about him all the time, so this will come as no surprise to you if you've listened to any of these podcasts. It is Marcus Aurelius, and just in general, any of the Stoic philosophers, whether it's Marcus or Seneca. He taught me perspective. More than anything else, I think perspective is the gift we can give ourselves that makes your reality whatever you want it to be, right? Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And I learned more so from Marcus and from Seneca that our perspective can take a thing and transform it with no additional effort other than us simply choosing to see it differently. That's amazing. That's amazing that you can look at somebody that you previously thought was the villain, and you could change that and say, actually, Darth Vader wasn't the villain. He was the good guy. Or you could say the good guys, are actually the bad guys. Or this thing that's bad, this tornado that just ripped through the town and, displaced hundreds of people from their homes, that was actually a good thing, right? You can change your perception of reality in an instant. And having that control gives you, I think, the ultimate power in this world, which is to realize that this thing is happening for you, not to you, that it's an extension of your will. And that makes you the master of your universe in a really interesting way. And so those are 5 authors that have had a really profound impact on my life. I would recommend you go read them. Stephen King, Brandon Sanderson, Kurt Vonnegut, Nassim Taleb, and Marcus Aurelius. Go check them out. And let me know, who do you like? Like, who's been an author that's had a really massive impact on your life? Don't give me the Bible. I get that one all the time. Okay, religious texts, they're great, guys. But give me something non-religious. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.